All information contained in this podcast is general in nature and does not consider your individual circumstances. You should consider the appropriateness of this information with regards to your individual objectives, financial situation, and needs. Welcome to Sharing More Than the Sheets, a podcast to help you and your partner make better financial and lifestyle decisions so that you can both focus on the things that you love. I'm your host, Michael Khouri, financial planner, green thumb, husband, and just dad. This episode is part of a series where I interview experts on various areas around mental health. If you or someone you know is in crisis and needs help now, call 000 Lifeline on 13 11 14 or Beyond Blue on 1300 22 46 36 anytime for support and advice. Many people have experienced anxiety or know someone very close to them that has. Yet we all have different types of experiences or different perceptions on what anxiety is. Today, I've invited Tanya Harding, a counsellor, to join us on this podcast episode to talk about anxiety. Tanya, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, Michael, and thank you so much for having me.
It's such a would I be right in saying that it's such a common thing these days? Like, I think last time I looked at the stats, it was something like 1 in 5 people will experience anxiety in their life, or 1 in 3 women and 1 in 5 men, I think it was.
Yeah, that's right, Michael. And it is actually a very big problem in today's time, especially the modern ages, along with depression. The thing about anxiety, like any other feelings, is we actually experience emotions and feelings to protect us. So basically, if you are fearful or something, if somebody breaks into your house, you get scared. So you get that fight or flight reaction. And
Yes.
That's a protective thing to keep ourselves safe. And it's the same with anxiety. If you've got a race that you're going to run or an exam that you're going to write, that anxiety that you feel is actually activating your brain and making you more aware of what's going on around you. So anxiety isn't necessarily always a bad thing. We actually need anxiety to get through certain situations. The problem with anxiety, though, is as soon as anxiety starts interfering with your daily life, I always look at anxiety as being separate to ourselves. So if you can, when I'm doing a counselling session with a client that has anxiety, I'll always say, give that anxiety a name, put it aside and don't let it control you. You've got to learn to control your anxiety. So yes, anxiety is a worldwide problem. It is, it's a really big problem, as I said, in modern days. I think because generally we live such fast, stressed lives. There's so much going on in today's world with technology. Everything's so much faster. We've got to fit so much more in a day, in our working day. A family. I think with education, all that stuff, it puts a lot of pressure on a person, and that creates anxiety. Anxiety is, it's almost like a byproduct of worry. You always, even if you're not realizing that you are a very stressed, worried person, it does come out in anxiety.
Okay.
Talking about anxiety too, everybody, when you use the term anxiety, it's actually a term that encompasses so many different forms. The anxiety isn't just a single stress factor or a single symptom. It actually can vary in different ways, and it can be caused by different things. So some of the things I'm quickly going to cover. General things, we've got exhaustion. If you're tired, you feel snappy, you feel irritable, you feel that's anxiety. That's your anxiety coming up from lack of sleep, being tired. Your body not being able to function as it should because of exhaustion. It can be from, stress, study, work, being out of work, that can also cause anxiety. Money problems, isolation, being lonely, that can cause anxiety. Obviously, then we've got the deeper ones, such as, you losing a loved one or being in a traumatic situation or event. Bullying these days is quite a big one. It seems to be with technology and social media and so on. Bullying can be a very bad, especially for younger kids, teenagers. That can cause them a lot of anxiety. Then, of course, we've got the racism, things like that can happen in a person's life, and this all causes anxiety.
It's interesting that you say that. It's like some of the things you're mentioning are, to most people that experience, isolation or being tired or being stressed or even bullying, to most people, unfortunately, a lot of that's just normal. And I can really see something like anxiety creeping up as well, because somebody, for example, might be just used to being tired all the time and stressed all the time, and think it just becomes normal, if that makes sense. Like they just normalize it in their life, and from there, I can see anxiety being something that sort of creeps up where they don't even realize that they're experiencing it. Would that be right?
That's 100% correct. Yes, that's 100% correct. And as I said, we all live with anxiety in our lives, every day to a major or lesser scale. We might not even know it's there. I mean, we might have, let me think of a good example. Say your phone's ringing and, you've quickly got to work on a particular thing. So you've got to rush to get over your phone before it stops. That's anxiety. And that's such a simple, basic thing. Mm-hmm. So every single day we do live with anxiety. The trick with anxiety is that it doesn't control you, but that you control it. And also that the anxiety doesn't get to that degree that it's affecting your daily living.
Yes, and I like that you mentioned human. Not you didn't say the word humanizing, but that's what I think when you say give it a name. But giving anxiety a name or giving it an object, not giving it an object, like making it into an object or making it into something probably a bit more mentally tangible. I mean, if that's even a word.
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, because it's not making anxiety. Anxiety is not ruling you. You ruling the anxiety. You're controlling that anxiety. The anxiety is, is there. It is part of you, but it's not, it's not controlling you.
Yes. And what are some types of anxiety? And I know that this is something that you can get into for hours, but if you could just generally touch on the different types of anxiety, because I know there are different types.
Well, there's many diagnoses of extreme anxiety. There's panic disorder. So panic disorder is when you experience intense recurring like panic attacks and at unexpected times. It just creeps up on you. So it's not necessarily triggered by anything. It could be triggered by many things over an extended period of time, but it's a panic attack that you have unexpectedly and consistently. I mean, that's intense. That's your heartbeats, you sweat, some people blank out. They can't see, they can't hear, and it's unexpected. So it could happen anywhere. They could be sitting at work, they could be just at home, they could be sleeping even, and they have this panic attack. That's quite an extreme form of anxiety. Then, of course, all your phobias, arachnophobia, whatever phobia you might have, fear of heights, that is all related to anxiety as well.
And that makes sense. And that makes sense when you talk about the heart beating and feeling stressed and, it just the emotions that come with, someone that's scared of heights, for example, or scared of spiders, or and even there's a point where, like even if somebody's scared of, I don't know, say ants, for example, or even spiders, if that person's constantly spending their lives looking around the room, always worried about a spider coming up to them or an ant or something like that, I've never thought of it as being a form of anxiety.
Yeah, yep. Phobias are definitely anxiety, and one of another. Obviously, I was doing some research and things a couple of years ago, and one of the speakers at this development webinar said that anxiety, when you have a panic attack or anxiety or extreme fear, it feels like, when you're driving down a road and you're almost in a car accident, but you're kind of not. That you start shaking and you get a fright, and they try to explain it that is what anxiety feels like. That almost being. They specifically use the car accident. So if someone swerves in front of you and you almost hit them,
It's like the anticipation of something happening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then we've also, just to mention a few more, we've got social anxiety disorder. This is really hard because as humans, we are social beings. We are just born as social beings. So, that's a really tough one because, the world is social. Humans are social. And if you've got social anxiety, it makes it really, really hard to interact with the rest of the world, the community, go to the shops, drop the kids off at anything social that's slightly sociable it's very fearful for you, and it's very scary, and it's not nice for that person. It's really a fear of being judged by others. We've also got obsessive compulsive disorder, and you wouldn't think this, but that is also a form of an anxiety disorder. We've got separation anxiety disorder, a fear of being away from home. There's an anxiety disorder, illness disorder, where you're scared of getting sick all the time. You're always going to the doctor. It's like a real fear. Post-traumatic stress disorder is part of an anxiety. So yeah, there's many different forms of anxiety, extreme forms that can take place, where a person can actually get diagnosed for, and you'll have to seek treatment for that because that is impacting on your everyday living.
And you've mentioned some of the symptoms already, but can you maybe highlight some more symptoms that, or some signs that somebody could potentially have anxiety? Because again, like it is one of those things that, as I said, seems to creep up on people. Some people won't even realize that they have it. And you talked about like having a racing heart, or you mentioned, somebody just feeling a particular way, not knowing why they feel like that. But what would you say is some of the main signs that someone can watch out for?
Well, obviously, fatigue. You can have, really fast heart. Feels like your heart's beating at your chest. You can start shaking. You can get sweats. Fear. That fear, anxiety is always linked together. Shortness of breath, nausea, numbness or tickling in your hands and feet. So those are just a few of the symptoms and signs. Irritability. Irritability. Sometimes anxiety can be linked to, it can portray itself in physical. So if you get unexplained aches and pains, and they become quite common before you have an anxiety attack or before you feel anxious, you can actually link that and know, okay, hang on, I'm starting to get anxiety. I might have a panic attack. Everybody's different and everybody displays different symptoms, but those are just some of the common symptoms of anxiety.
These podcasts have been brought to you by Better Financial Planning Australia. To book a free 15-minute phone chat, visit betterfinancialplanning.com.au. And another one as well is, and this is just from personal experience, actually, from a friend of mine, but even avoiding like social situations. If somebody likes, they're constantly avoiding social situations because it makes them feel anxious.
Yes, and that would be that social anxiety that I mentioned earlier.
Yes.
That fear of being judged, that, just fear of social.
And you mentioned treatment earlier. So can you maybe highlight some of the areas of treatment or some of the options of treatment for it?
Okay, well, there's some great treatment. First of all, I think it's good to know when you actually need to, obviously there is treatment. General anxiety is quite easy. If you go and speak to somebody, a counsellor or a therapist, it's a basic anxiety that's just getting a little bit away from you. That's a great option. Just talking about it and just learning about yourself, when that anxiety actually starts interfering with relationships and your work, and the fear and worry gets out of control, or you're starting to realize, hang on, I'm feeling a little bit depressed now, or I'm feeling too down, or even suicidal, or, as I said, anxiety can cause physical health problems too. You start abusing drugs and alcohol, those are all really big signs that you need some, serious help. I would suggest, a GP referral, because obviously if there's a secondary symptom such as depression or, they can give you antidepressants. There are anti-anxiety tablet, prescriptions that you can get. And this is extreme cases. As I said, the Mulder cases, counselling, psychotherapy, that should work perfectly fine. Extreme cases, that along with more medical treatment would definitely need to be sought by the person who's struggling with this extreme
Yes.
anxiety. And talking about a very good exercise, actually, that, many years ago when I was studying and things, I came across this exercise, which I actually, try and teach my clients that come to me with anxiety. And when they're in a situation where they actually, they can feel that little bit of sweating coming on, they can feel maybe, their face getting warmer, their heart beating faster, they're thinking like the anxiety is building up. A very good one is to get your senses working. So basically, I always say to them, in that situation, focus on one object. It could be a tree, it could be a painting. Focus on that object for 15, 20 seconds. So that's your sight, that's your visual. And then touch something, hold something, feel something, preferably something a little bit more sensory, and that's your sense of touch. So you're visualizing one thing, you're touching one thing, and then think of a positive thought. Just think of something positive, because what you're doing is you're actually reprogramming, or you're stopping your brain from getting into that kind of frenzied state. So you're actually soothing it by visualizing, just focusing on one thing, that feeling something, thinking of that touch, and then thinking of a positive thought, happy memory, and that just tells you, it takes your brain away from that state of anxiety building up. But it works pretty well, if you do it early enough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds so practical. And Tanya, I'll probably beat you to this, but I think the main message in this is to seek professional advice because everyone's situation is different. And speaking to a qualified counsellor and speaking to your GP and somebody that's licensed and qualified to give you advice on these things I would say is key. And what are some other practical tips that people can utilize when they feel like they're feeling anxious? It's just some other strategies.
Well, as I said, I think one of the most important things is to know your anxiety, know your own body, know your own emotions. Basically, if you do that, you will realize and you'll be aware of when your anxiety is flaring up, so to say. You get to know yourself, your anxiety. We spoke about putting anxiety in front of you, giving it a name. You get to know that, and when that anxiety is going to start affecting you. Another good way is planning. Make sure you know what's going to happen if you've got social anxiety and you've got to go to a social event. Plan for that. Make sure you're ready. Make sure you do all your things that you need to do to be able to cope with a situation that you can't cope in. Another very good strategies for when you feel like you're getting anxiety is muscle relaxation exercises. If you Google muscle relaxation exercises, there's heaps of them out there and they all work. It's the same as the breathing. You'd take big, strong breaths through your nose, hold it for 5 or 10 seconds, let it out through your mouth slowly. If you do that 10 times, that will also start calming down that anxiety that's brewing. Self-educate yourself, know what's happening in your body, and as I said, a very, very important thing is, seek help. There is so much help out there. There's counsellors, there's psychologists, there's, GPs, there's a lot of strategies you can put in place and utilize, to help you work through and deal with and live with your anxiety if you have to, but that it's not interfering with your everyday life. So that would be my suggestions, and love yourself, be kind to yourself, positive thinking. Everybody's amazing, so we've always got to remember that. And that's, again, not letting that anxiety control us or tell us who we are.
And you know what, Tanya? I think of all the things you mentioned, I think that last one, and again, I'm not a counsellor for the record, but I think that last one that you mentioned, being kind to yourself, that whole self-care thing is probably one of the most important ones, because if we look after ourselves, which means, not overworking ourselves, staying physically healthy, having our own time, socializing with people, looking out for the signs. If somebody has a child or a pet, and that child or pet is starting to show signs of sickness, they treat it. They take the child to a doctor, or they quickly take their pet to a vet, and they'll take a day off work just to take their pet, their dog or cat, to the vet if their dog or cat is really sick. But most people, when they're sick or when they have these similar symptoms, they just ignore it and they just keep working. And I feel like if more of us were kind to ourselves, and that the whole self-care thing, which has become so prominent over the last 5 or 6 years, I hear more and more people talking about it. If we cared about these things, if we focused on these things more, which is easier said than done. I do understand that, because all of us.
That's correct. We are our own hardest critics. So yes. At the end of the day, so self-care, self-love, just, it
makes such a difference. Yeah.
That will get a person. Yes.
And also, on the breathing thing, there's a strategy that I heard years ago about breathing, and I'm not sure if this is what it's called, or if this is just what the person called it, but it's resetting the breathing system, where basically you empty your lungs of air, you breathe in quietly through your nose for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 7 seconds, and then you exhale for 8 seconds.
Yes, and that's when I was talking about with if you feel that coming on, and breathe deep in through your nose, hold it in for 5 to 10 seconds, and then slowly out through your mouth. And if you do that 5, 10, whatever amount of times, you'll actually start feeling yourself calming down. So that is a very, very good exercise and strategy to use when you are starting to feel you're getting anxious.
Yes, because when you get anxious, normally the first thing you sort of feel is normally breathing, isn't it? Not the first, but one of the main things is breathing. Like, you feel short of breath and you don't know how to stop that cycle of just breathing in and out really fast.
That's correct. And if you don't control that breathing, it can turn into like a panic attack, because with your breathing increasing, your heart rate's increasing, everything's increasing, and it's just making it worse.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I like that you've shared, these, some practical examples, and I just love that you said, just if you give anxiety a name, give it something, it makes sense. It just makes sense, because instead of, when you feel comfortable with what you're dealing with, or what it is, or you have a better understanding of it, it's easier to deal with it.
That's exactly right. And key is not to let anxiety control your life, but let you control your anxiety.
And also, just to relate this to financial planning for a second, because this is the first thing that comes to mind when I think of anxiety, is a lot of people have money anxiety. And even just thinking about money gives them anxiety. And normally that comes down to the relationship that they have with money and their understanding of money. And I find that clients of mine, when they start understanding money more, and they know what it is, or they know how it works, and they have a strategy, and they know what's going on, they suddenly start feeling less anxious about money. Whereas those that put their head in the sand and don't really understand their money and don't know why things are doing what they're doing, they're the ones that, tend to get anxious because they don't understand it.
Yeah, that's 100%. You're 100% right. And also, as I said, counselling is an amazing tool to use, for any aspect, any difficulty, any issue that you are dealing with in your life, because you're telling your story. You're externalizing your problems, and you're getting strategies and tools in place to empower yourself to be able to work through those difficulties. There's financial counselors out there too. There's counselors for every, a lot of different situations. So I would definitely suggest utilizing them.
Yeah. And Tanya, thank you so much for your time. It's been such an insightful episode, and it's, and I think this is something that a lot of people will probably either keep in their toolkit or share it with a friend or family member that they think it's going to help. I like to finish my episodes off with a dad joke. They say laughter is one of the best medicines, but so why can't a leopard hide?
I don't know.
Because he's always spotted.
That is a dad joke.
It's pretty good. I know. I'm not over it yet. We're over 100 episodes at the moment, and I'm still popping out the dad jokes. So
they're so good though.
I didn't expect it to last more than
up a person's day.
They do, and I didn't expect the dad jokes to last more than 10 episodes, to be honest with you. So it's Still going strong. But Tanya, again, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it so much. And again, I'm sure this episode is going to help so much people when they're starting to feel these symptoms and they want to seek help.
It's only my pleasure. And it was wonderful sharing knowledge and, just, and as I said, just love yourselves. We've got to love ourselves and, there's so much help out there. Utilise it.
That's it. We should never forget that.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
Okay, Michael. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Sharing More Than the Sheets. Please make sure you subscribe to be updated with future episode releases, and feel free to share this episode with any friends or family that you think it might benefit. Please visit us at sharingmorethanthesheets.com.au to submit questions